Today, we're going to dig into an idea that really challenges the way we think about modern economics. We're talking about something called Buddhist economics, and it all boils down to a simple but pretty revolutionary phrase, small is beautiful. So let's explore how this one little idea questions pretty much everything we assume about how an economy is supposed to work.
You know, we're kind of conditioned to believe that a healthy economy is one that's always growing, producing more, consuming more, year after year after year. But what if that's not the only way to look at it? What if the real goal wasn't just infinite growth, but human well-being? This exact question was at the heart of a huge shift in thinking a few decades back.
So, picture the world in the 60s and 70s. We're living in the shadow of major global conflicts. The Vietnam War is happening, and an entire generation is starting to really question the status quo. They felt burned out by what they saw as this relentless, endless drive for expansion, no matter the cost. And they started looking around for different, maybe more sustainable ways to live.
And right out of this cultural search came this really powerful new idea. It was championed by one economist who found his inspiration in, well, a pretty unexpected place.
This is Ernst Friedrich Schumacher. Back in 1955, he was working as an economic advisor, and he took a trip to Burma, which we now know as Myanmar. And what he saw there didn't just interest him, it basically planted the seed for a whole new philosophy of economics.
Schumacher was just blown away by the official government vision in Burma at the time. You can see it right here. This idea that spiritual health and material well-being are not enemies, they are natural allies. I mean, for an economist, that was absolutely radical. The thought that these two things could not only exist together, but actually help each other, well, it completely captivated him.
So Schumacher started thinking, right? If our modern materialist way of life has its own system of economics, then surely a way of life based on Buddhist principles must need a Buddhist economics. And he managed to take this really profound insight and just boil it down to one unforgettable phrase. Small is beautiful. This became the title of his mega-famous book and the core idea that just grabbed the world's attention. It was a direct challenge to that old saying that bigger is always better. Instead, it pointed toward a world built on a smaller, more human scale, one that values simplicity and nonviolence. Okay, so what does Buddhist economics actually look like when you get down to it? Well, Schumacher laid it all out by comparing it directly with the conventional view on a few really fundamental things. And this is where it gets fascinating. Let's kick things off with work. From a modern economic perspective, labor is often just a cost on a spreadsheet, right? Something you want to minimize, automate if you can. But from a Buddhist viewpoint, work is essential. It's how we develop our skills and our character. Think about the difference between a carpenter carefully crafting a chair and a worker who just presses a button on an assembly line. One can be incredibly fulfilling. The other, well, it can be soul-crushing. The point isn't to get rid of work. It's to make it meaningful. Now, what about all the stuff we buy? The modern view often says that a higher standard of living just means more consumption. The more things you have, the better off you are. The Buddhist view completely flips this on its head. Imagine this. The goal isn't to consume as much as you possibly can, but to get the most well-being with the least amount of consumption. It's about being elegantly sufficient, not endlessly excessive. And this just perfectly illustrates the difference. It's pretty incredible to think about. An economist today might look at rising shipping statistics and see a blooming global economy. That's progress. But a Buddhist economist would see that as a failure, a clear sign that we're not producing things locally from local resources for the people who actually live there. It's just waste on a massive scale. And finally, let's look at how we treat the planet. The modern approach tends to see nature as just a collection of inputs. There's no real difference between a renewable resource like timber and a non-renewable one like oil, as long as the price is right. The Buddhist view sees a huge, almost sacred difference. It calls for reverence for nature and extreme care with the resources we can't get back. And Schumacher put it so bluntly. He said that using up our planet's finite resources, that's not living off our income, that's living parasitically on our capital. It's a really beautiful and compelling vision, but like a lot of powerful ideas, it was about to be tested by the harsh realities of the real world. So the big question becomes, what happened in Burma, the very country that inspired this whole philosophy? Did that ideal of harmony between spirituality and economics, did it ever really happen?
The tragic reality is that just a few years after Schumacher's visit, that inspiring vision was completely shattered. In 1962, a military coup toppled the exact same government he had admired so much. The country was then plunged into decades of isolation under a very harsh new ideology. And that path of Buddhist economics, at least in the place it was born, was cut short before it ever really began.
But here's the thing. Even though the original inspiration took such a dark turn, the core idea itself didn't just vanish. In fact, it raises a question that is probably more relevant today than it ever has been.
The absolute essence of what Schumacher was arguing, the entire philosophy behind small is beautiful, can be found right in the powerful subtitle of his famous 1973 book.
Economics as if people mattered. That's it. It's such a simple but profound shift in perspective. It asks us to stop looking at economics as this abstract system of numbers and resources and start seeing it as a tool that should be serving human dignity, creativity, and genuine well-being.
And that brings us right back to the big question for our own time, doesn't it? As we face these massive global challenges like climate change, and as we have deeper conversations about mental health and what actually makes for a good life, Schumacher's challenge from 50 years ago is just echoing with a whole new urgency. What is our economy for? And who or what should it really be serving?